Good Tuesday evening, folks. It is time to talk some football. You guys know me, even though the voice sounds a little bit rough today, right? We're still kind of recovering from Sunday's game. It's your boy SAJ. I am coming to you live from Payless Shoe Source. I don't think I've used that one.
Possibly, I'm not
So
sure. What is up? I am BD. Today, I'm going to be coming at you from the Felix's Restaurant Studios, old Mexican joint in Universal City that me and the family used to go to when I was a kid. Uh, Building's still there, but it's like a sports bar or something now. But had some fond memories of being there when I was a little kid.
nice. Not a place I'm familiar with. We didn't spend a whole lot of time, even though we lived pretty close to UC. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in that area. So cannot relate, but that's cool. I'm glad you've got those good memories to look back on. So you can, annoy your kids with back when I was a kid type
Yeah,
stories.
I
Gotta
mean,
love that.
and to pull the old SAJ segue. Speaking of good memories, what about that game this weekend, man?
Man, let's talk about that game. And I know we kind of talked about it quite a bit, last night on Horns Forward podcast. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time talking about all the fun stuff that we did. What's up, David? Horns Forward, good to see you, my brother. But there were some really cool things that we did there that weren't really part of the trip, such as running into Brahma Babe, running into Coach Party and everybody. John, back's perfectly fine. I'm not sure if you're talking about me lifting up Brahma, bro. I'm telling you, man, dude's light as a feather. This is no big deal. So, hell, I even lifted up J Will after the game, and you guys saw that too. And he was like, "Oh no, don't!" And I lifted him, and he was like, "Oh, that hurts." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, you did just get done playing football, but hey, whatever." I'm still excited. So, um, but yeah, there was a lot of fun that we did with that whole thing. Um, let's see. There you go, horns forward. Yes,
That's right.
sir.
That's
Looking
right.
forward to it. We've got to figure out how to make our own emoji where it's horns forward because that and like the rocker thing, and it's too much like Houston. And no offense to Houston, but especially this weekend when we're playing them, man, I don't love to the Houston fans, but the Houston team is our enemy. Okay. And so I don't want anything even remotely close to being associated with that right now because, again, they're the enemy. So, um, but DC, really fun place. Um, I don't know how this happened, but your boy somehow infiltrated the DC fan group and then became a moderator of their chat. And so I'm being respectful. I'm not in there bashing them or anything like that. All I'm doing is looking for those crazy spam links and throwing them out, right? But I did warn everybody from the beginning. I was like, hey guys, just so you know, like DC's not my team and San Antonio's my team. And so when we play each other, yeah, I might throw a couple of barbs you guys this way. And they were like perfectly fine, no problem. Just don't be a jerk. So I'm having to behave, right? Because they asked me not to be a jerk, and that's kind of default for me. Um, but I will say again, right? Some really cool events happened while we were there. Um, some oh hey, what's up? It is now, is it Seguin Bryant? Should we call him that now? Because he's spending so much time in Seguin? Because it
He's
seems
still
like he
Florida
changed his
Brian.
home
He's
state.
still Florida Brian. Always Florida Brian.
He'll always be Florida Brian to me.
Yeah.
Um, but that's good. Like you've locked yourself into a little niche there. Um, again, got to see some cool sights, got to do some cool things. I would say arguably one of the funnest things was running into Coach Party and at least half of the offensive staff because I'm not sure what all everybody does there yet. Um, and some faces that I mean I've seen, but I don't
Yeah.
know what their role is, right? Um, what's up? Make that three because you're a Texan too, and you're talking with us. There you go. Oh, he's Sybil O'Brien. Well, until he goes and takes a nap at the Comic Con thing in Seguin, during one of his crazy shifts that he has to do there, and then he'll become Seguin Bryan. And then when he goes home that night, then he'll be back to Civil O'Brien. Anyways, we're spending too much time talking about cities and stuff. Let's go back to DC. Uh, the uh, the trip was awesome. Um, I do have to say, guys, just a reminder: if you're going to travel anywhere, especially if you're chasing this spring football league like we do, and you're looking for the cheapest deals, be prepared for some of the weirdest trips ever. Okay, BD, you want to fill them in on what I'm talking about?
You know, yeah. So we're taking these flights. We flew up to Detroit last week, DC this past weekend, and we're booking Southwest, and we're just kind of looking at times leaving, times getting there, and the cheapest flight. Well, we found flights that got us in where we wanted to go after check-in for the hotel or Airbnb. Left a little early, but you know what? They were the cheapest flights. Well, the reason they were the cheapest flights was because the one that took us to Detroit routed us through Vegas first with about a hour layover there, and then coming back, it took us to Chicago, then down to SA, which that's not bad. Well, this past weekend, uh, before we went to DC, it thought it routed us to Phoenix because that's the perfect way you want to go when you're going to DC. And then on the way home, it took us to Denver for about a 3.5 hour layover before we came down to San Antonio. So a lot of time, a lot of flights, a lot of time in airports. Kind of wear you down a little bit. But you know what? It was like I said, we got into the cities when we needed to be. We left when we needed to, so it was all good. And we were able to get a little bit of work done in the airport yesterday. So
Yes. So again, if I can make a recommendation, if there's a team that you want to go and visit and turn it into a little vacation, DC is probably one of the good ones to do. Michigan was fun also. Can't really say anything about Birmingham because we haven't been there yet. Memphis was a lot of fun too, though. Not gonna lie, right? But the DC fans always treat us well,
yeah.
and they always welcome us with open arms. It's not like, you know, like a Cowboys fan walking into an Eagles bar or something like that. Um,
I did have to kind of keep it on the DL that I was a Cowboys fan a little bit. You know, I'd kind of mention it or start to mention it. I'd get some side eyes. I'm like, oh nope, I'm here. I'm here for the Brahmas. We're not going to talk about those other teams. So,
right.
but
Well, and
like,
up,
anytime it came up, we could all agree screw Philly. So
yeah,
that's what was
I was gonna
important.
say that's we learned how to diffuse that situation really, really quickly by saying, hey, you know what? Common enemy, let's hate them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was pretty easy. Um, I'd say Brahma Babe, being a Jaguars fan, would know what we're talking about, but nobody takes the Jags seriously, so it's not like
Ooh,
nobody really cared. So
dang. And I would like on your point, I will say of all the places we've been, the cities we traveled to for these games, DC is a place I will 1,000% go back to without having being going there for football. I've already, talked to my wife. She wants to go to DC, and she was thinking about going on this trip with us, but it wasn't going to be a sightseeing tour. It was just going to be go there, go watch football, and come back. But we're definitely going to go, spend a week down there and kind of enjoy all the scenery and stuff. It's a beautiful place. Really enjoyed it.
yeah, and you definitely should. But okay, um, I ain't worried about her. Um, I think the thing that we probably need to talk about the most is the results of that game and what we saw kind of in uh uh losing my mind. Week one, St. Louis versus what we saw in Michigan versus what we saw in DC, right? Um, Obviously, we got to win against one of the hottest teams in the UFL right now, proving that we have the talent, we have the pieces in place. We just had to come up with the right game plans.
Yeah.
And again, we said it last, or I definitely said it last night. I want to make sure that I'm very clear on this. This is not a shot against AJ or anybody else. Okay. AJ's plans are more of an air raid offense that don't work with a quarterback like Mond, who is more kind of, you know, read option scramble. Okay. And stop it with the Temu Tua. That's not him. That's the other guy.
He's talking about Teamu.
I know he's being mean.
Yeah.
Um, but
Hey, you know what? But he
again,
but he should know because they have the Timu Rock on their sidelines.
oh, that's true. The Pebble.
Yeah.
So I guess they are an expert on the Timu buys. Anyways, I'm trying to share stuff on Facebook too, and this isn't working so well. So let me get focused here. When we watched them play in St. Louis, the players you could tell were frustrated and dejected almost immediately. Okay. Um, and this is important, right? Mark this down what Havo said, and then what XFL Mike G is saying, right? Five different coaches, same playbook. They're going to look at it a little bit differently and read it a little bit differently. And it is true. I do think Havo's point here is correct that Party does seem to be able to know what each one of his players' strengths and weaknesses
Yeah.
are. Now, there, in my personal opinion, I think we're still having limited success with the mirror run play that we're using because we keep trying to run up the center, and we're having a little bit of issues with blocking in the front, the center part of the line. Now, maybe Party is seeing something there that, if we keep smashing that line, eventually it's going to break. I don't know. We
You know,
certainly
I
have the
did I
running
did
back
see a few
to be able to
times
do
on
it.
the replays and stuff. Just kind of watching the game back. There were quite a few times on the inside run that the block was just a little late, or the cut was just a little late, and if it would have been good timing, perfectly timed, it would have been a long gain. And maybe that's probably what Party's seeing. He's like, okay, this scheme is working. We just have to hit our blocks. We just have to hit the hole at the right time, or cut at the right time, and we're gonna
That's
break
what she
one.
said.
And you know, uh, it you're dumb. But I think that's probably what Party is seeing. Like there's a chance for success, and so you keep kind of daring them with that center run, and then you have Corbin broke one to the outside, McFarland broke one, so I understand why you got to keep kind of hitting it in the center there, but
Mhm.
it is frustrating constantly seeing, you know, 1 yard gain, 2 yard losses and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
but as this scheme kind of develops and the players know more where they're supposed to be, who they're supposed to be blocking, all that. I'm hoping that we can see more gains out of those runs and stuff as well.
true. There is also one other thing that I would like to see from our defense. I know we talked about it last night. We were in the backfield a lot, right? We're putting a lot of pressure on Tamu, but 10 rushes for 74 yards. Longest was 12, right? That's
Yeah.
a little scary, knowing that the quarterback is getting that kind of room. Um, so um it I'm worried that our defensive backs maybe might be overcommitting a little bit. Um, but that's just a personal,
And
observation.
we
It could
saw
be,
that we saw
part of
that
the
last week
design
in
play.
Michigan too. Um, that's why uh the read option was working so well, because our contained backs uh on the defense were kind of sinking in, and the
Mhm.
quarterback could just go. So they weren't holding their
Yeah,
containment. And you saw it again too. So it is still a work in progress. So
Yeah. But all things considered, over a 3 game stretch with, basically, party being thrown in kind of midweek when AJ bailed. Um, I think we did okay last week, right? I think we showed massive improvement in only, what, 4 days maybe.
yeah,
And then today, oh yes, real quick, Rig, nothing but love, one state, one love.
absolutely, Rick.
Make
Pray for you,
make
man.
sure yes, make sure you guys are keeping Rig and his family in your thoughts and prayers as they mourn the loss of his mom. I know that was a big impactful thing for him. And Rig, we're family. Doesn't matter what team we're rooting for, we're all together. We're praying for you, man. Okay. So let us know if you need anything. Back to the football. Um, with the new scheme, Mon, looking good. The injuries, right? That's kind of a big thing. We do look like a fairly complete team. I don't think we're completely there yet.
No, no,
Okay.
not at all.
Um,
I think I said this after the Michigan game. The team that we saw in Michigan looked like a team that could compete with and beat any team in the league, and we saw that again this past weekend against DC. They're not,
mhm,
you know, they're not the best team in the league right now. Like they still have a long way to go before they want to be in that conversation, but you
mhm.
do see, like, I mean, like what Havo said, you've got some injuries, obviously, Manny in St. Louis, the biggest one. um that kind of drops the battle chickens down a little bit. We're kind of moving up. So
Well, losing Manning dropped the battle chickens down a little bit, and then their backup quarterback signing dropped them down even more.
well, yeah.
Right. Right. So Houston faithful, you can relate to this. Looks like St. Louis signed Brandon Silvers as their backup quarterback. And you guys remember what you got with him. So, you
Well,
know,
actually, when
and
when he played with them, that was when they had the best record in the league until the playoff game. So he was good. He was good with the Roughnecks. Um, but
ish.
he backed up at St. Louis last year, but I don't think he played much. So,
No, because AJ was at the helm, and AJ wasn't about to give
well,
it up.
I know there was a couple of games where AJ was injured when he hurt his ankle and stuff. I don't remember if Manny played or Silvers did.
I
I'm pretty
don't
sure
know.
Manny played actually.
I don't know. But so yeah, San Antonio gets the hard fought win, and it was a decisive win because I mean, that goal line stand was extremely important. And we did go a little bit more conservative in the second half than we should have. We talked about that last night as well. So hopefully next week or this week we don't do that.
And
I
I
don't
will
want to put
say,
like
like,
80 points up, but
yeah, I think the defense, like I said, we got a lot of pressure. We gave up a lot of yards, and we gave
yeah,
up over 400 yards total, which is a lot for a UFL game. I mean, usually you're
yeah,
seeing 250, 300 yard totals. But they made stops when they had to. They were DC was kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns most of the game. Um, Time possession, DC
yep.
held the ball for about 2 minutes more than we did. But a lot closer than some of the games we had seen with us. So, once
Yes.
again, the team's making strides. It's looking good.
No, you can't, Tim. There's only one time I dance. Okay. And we're not going to talk about that. But what we are going to talk about is that wonderful, glorious win by the Arlington Renegades over the St. Louis Battle Chickens. Absolutely love that. Now, um, I'm trying to remember. Brian and I watched this while we were traveling,
Yeah, we were
right?
on we were on the plane uh
Yeah,
to DC while this was on.
yeah. Um, so, and sadly, we did have somebody sitting in between us on the airplane. So they keep seeing us lean forward and like, yeah, or do something. right? And that poor person had no idea what was going on. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just brutal. But if you look at the stats, St. Louis only put up 157 yards. And real quick, I want to make sure I say this part too. Okay. We bash on teams, right? We talk about players not doing so well and stuff like that, but we never wish any ill will on anybody. So thoughts and prayers going out to Manny. I know he suffered
Yeah.
an Achilles tear. This is obviously the end of his season because there's no way he's going to be able to get patched up and healed
No,
from that in
absolutely not.
only 4 or 5 weeks. Um, with the age of him as a quarterback, this could potentially be his last season. I mean, we don't know. We're only speculating. We've not heard anything, and it's way too early to make that call. But it's something that you might want to keep an eye on. He may wind up retiring. At least, though, they've got the health insurance. So the players union did argue and get that. And so he should be taken care of during all of his treatments and everything like that. So thoughts and prayers for Manny as he heals. Hopefully he's able to, at least bounce back and have a normal life after that. Maybe even come back and compete somewhere. But for right now, he just needs to, worry about healing up and getting patched up. Okay.
Yep.
And Tim, no, we did not. That poor person had no idea what they were doing, right? And yes, the wet turf did get him. But if you look at the stats, because Manny only came in for what, a couple of plays.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It was the first drive that he I think
yep,
3 plays into the game.
yep. He went 0 and 2. In fact, it was the second play. It was the second play where he fumbled. I like how the stats on the UFL page says, Manny Wilkins fumbles forced by nobody, right? Because it was a drop when he felt that hammy or with that tendon go, he
Yeah.
immediately off the ball and reached for it, right? And I would have too. Like there's, I don't think very many people would have worried about the football in that situation. Um, but offensively, obviously, Arlington crushed it. 209 yards total, 149 in the air, 73 on the ground, which I think it's extremely impressive that St. Louis was still able to get, 122 on the ground, and Sailors put up 61 of those. You
Yep.
know, um, pardon me. Canella had a pretty decent game. Um, there were some highlights here. If you look at the time of possession, I mean, Arlington was pretty much in control the entire time. Um, I was a little surprised that St. Louis's defense was able to hold as well as they did in the second and third quarter, but where it would have mattered most, they didn't hold them in the fourth quarter, and offense didn't put up any points. So it was one of those things where I mean you hate to see a guy go down, but you like seeing that team take the L, right? A little bit
Yeah.
of humble pie, you know. So St. Louis is going to be falling back on the arm of Max Duggan, um, or as Brian likes to call him, Max digging a hole. Um, and I'm sure they're going to revamp the offense in this next week to be a little bit more designed towards his playing style. But what do you think, Brian? I mean, do you think we've seen pretty much, the downslide of
I mean,
the
I I don't think St. Louis is going to be a serious contender this year. Um, I I know they're supposed to be getting Hakeem Butler back, which will help whoever's going to be a quarterback, Duggan, or if they decide to put Silvers in. But just from what I saw, I see this kind of being beginning of the end for the team, and them to drop towards the bottom of the XFL conference.
I want to see um, receiving. So Hakeem only played one game, no receptions, no anything. Um, I know Hakeem is supposed to be, one of the biggest offensive weapons on St. Louis's team. we're going to have to see if that even happens here because it seems like Sailors is kind of doing everything, right? He's running it, he's catching it, um, he's kind of doing it all. So is Hakeem Butler going to take some of that pressure off of him and be a second option for Duggins? Um, but we'll just have to wait and see this next week. The one other game I wanted to talk about, obviously, is the Houston Roughnecks, and I'm I'm pleasantly surprised with their performance. Right? We watched the game in DC at a sports bar. Well, it was a tap bar, um, but I did not expect that game to be as close as it was. I certainly thought that with Houston's struggles that they were going to get blown out, maybe get like 9 points at the most, kind of like what we did. But that was not the case. They hung in this game for sure, man. And I want to say uh, things were looking pretty good in that third quarter when they kind of started getting it close, right? But then the ponies, put up six in the fourth quarter and just kind of walked away with the game.
Now, I
Um,
was impressed. Henderson went down pretty early in the game, and McClendon came in for quarterback for Houston, and I was really impressed with him. He looked confident. Like his stats weren't insane. I mean, 22 completions for like 230 something yards, a little over 10 yards completion is good. He had 17 rushes for and then a touchdown. He looked good kind of on some of those runs, but he was third string, and so because of injury he got put in, and you see the way Max Duggan looked when he got put in after injury. Then you see McClendon how he was, and it was just polar opposites of each other. McClendon
mhm,
looked like he was ready to go, and he balled out. Duggan was just confused.
yeah. And I will say the one thing that really hurt his stats was the interception, right? Um, Otherwise, I think the stats would have looked a lot better. I mean, he's got a 71% completion rating,
Yeah,
which is kind of insane. And I mean, if you look at the overall offensive stats, I mean, this is like an NFL game. Score would have been a little bit higher probably, but 357 yards of total offense for Birmingham and 328 for Houston, and that's crazy.
yeah,
So this is kind of more what I was expecting to see from our UFL games. And we've seen it. I mean, we've seen a lot of lopsided games, and we've seen a lot of, very, high time of possession, but, very little offensive production, you know? So it was nice to see a game where there's a little bit more action. Yeah, those defensive games can be fun once in a while, but not all the time,
yeah.
right? So it was good to see some offense here. But overall, it was an awesome game to watch. We caught it probably towards the end of the second quarter, going into halftime. So we obviously had some time to, you know, enjoy some more adult libations, if you will, and get prepared for that second half. What is up, Vanessa? Good to see you. Um, but yeah, overall, it was a great game. So I do expect Houston to try and use some of that momentum to come in with guns blazing in San Antonio. So our defense is going to have to be ready for a little bit of a revamped offense to play towards McClendon's style. And I definitely don't think this is going to be a cakewalk. And I don't think anybody on our squad is taking any of these games lightly, right? Because we have to fight
Yeah.
for every single game that we get. So overall, again, really good game. Then of course we had Michigan. Congrats to Michigan. Um, I talk about that a little bit, but I mean it was Memphis, right? No offense, Memphis, but
I'll tell you, Memphis tried to hang in there in the first half. They were holding their own for quite a while, and then just the second half, uh, just kind of Michigan kind of stopped playing around with them and took it over, especially in that fourth quarter. But
yeah,
Memphis hung around for a little while.
They did. Now I'll make sure we give them credit for that, right? They managed to hold Michigan to 7 points in the first and 7 points in the second, and actually 0 points for both teams in the third. Um, with that fourth quarter, Michigan just said, "Okay, we're done here. We're putting this away," and they did.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see, as of last week, Memphis's coach is back. It gave them a little bit of a boost, but they're kind of back to Memphis again.
Well,
So,
he came back. I mean, Hunt came back for one game and then left again. So now they're back to the original coach from week one.
oh, okay. I misunderstood that. So,
Yeah.
anyways, this next week, so I mean that could explain too why didn't they weren't as effective as they were the week prior.
Yeah, and I think that
Um,
maybe it's learning the system, stuff like that. But I see a lot of the same with the Houston coach is Memphis coach looks a little lost on the sidelines there sometimes. Um, you know, and they were kind of going through a little bit of it during the game, talking to kind of how the players were telling them how some plays should be ran and stuff like that. Just stuff you see on a new coach, but it was definitely interesting. I think Jay froze. Oh, yep, there he is.
yep. Too, it's either too many devices on the network right now or too many people in general on Google Fiber. I still haven't figured out how to make this thing work right.
Tell the kids to stop
But
streaming while you're podcasting.
I think I'm pretty much going to just lock everybody out and just
There
leave
you
the,
go. That's a good
the,
thing
the
on Google
you
Fiber.
know,
You can just hit lock all.
yeah,
It's like
I
just
should.
deny everybody.
There you go. Anyways, so yeah, going into this next week, we've got a couple of really good games. Um, Memphis is playing Birmingham, so I'm going to hate to say it. I'm picking Memphis for that game just out of spite.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure that they're going to lose, and so that's going to cost me in my standings, and that's fine. I don't care. Michigan is going into St. Louis. That should be a really good game. This is going to be a huge test for St. Louis under their new quarterback to see what they've got because Michigan can handle business.
They
So
got a
St.
really
Louis is
good
going to be
defense
ready.
too. So
Yeah. DC and Arlington, that's going to be one heck of a game because DC just lost rather to us, who arguably was considered to be one of the worst teams in the league. We turned it around and we put a stomping on them. So there's going to be a lot of hurt pride and a lot of anger, in this game, right? To kind of reclaim that throne. And obviously Arlington isn't going to want to lay down either because they're wanting to stay at the top themselves.
yep.
Then of course we have the Houston and San Antonio game. That's going to be a blast for us because that's our finally we are freaking home,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
Now we've got a bunch of obstacles to overcome. Obviously, Fiesta's going on right now, or going to be starting really soon. And our one parking lot is going to be taken up by the Fiesta Carnival. But there are plenty of other options, right? We haven't solidified anything with Horns Forward Podcast for Texans Talking Football yet. Uh, but we will be tailgating somewhere, right? Whether it's the alternative lot or whether it's some other location. Maybe we meet at Smoke and we walk over like DC did for the championship game. Maybe we go to Alamo. I'm not sure. We haven't worked out all the details, but keep an eye on our pages. As soon as we solidify something and get something locked down, we'll be letting you know where we're going. And then we'll just kind of take it from there. And then there will be other events, going on also. I know some of the other groups will most likely be in that Fiesta alternative lot,
Yeah, I
hanging
know.
out
Yeah, for
there.
sure. That all lot right next to it will be something going on there. And then
Yeah,
wherever we end up going.
right. Now, we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about some indoor football now for a little bit. Uh, let's do it. But 7 a.m., let's just make it midnight, right? Let's just make it an all night, all day thing. So, um, it, mm, we've got some stories. I'll just put it that way. Okay. And Tim, you're right. Again, we've got stories, but I'll just leave it alone. Anyways, indoor football. In the IFL, San Antonio unfortunately fell to Tulsa which we were kind of hoping for them that that would be a bounce back game. And they did play Tulsa earlier and had already lost to them once. Well, unfortunately, it didn't go their way again, but at least they kept it a little bit closer this time, right? Tulsa wound up winning 30, or I'm sorry, 45 to 31. Um, First quarter, San Antonio was looking pretty sharp, right? Kind of trading punches back and forth. Um, but then they kind of started petering out, right, towards the end of the second and into the third. And when they were able to start putting points on the board, it just was kind of a little bit too little, too late. Looking at the individual stats, Malik Henry went 17 to 23, 132 yards, one touchdown, but he also threw one interception. And then they brought in Guy Myers, which I believe is the backup quarterback, and he went 4-7. So not horrible. Um, Malik and Guy were obviously the leaders in the rushing. So it means, obviously really good defense in the pocket collapsing, and so the quarterback has to scramble. But you know, Tulsa was all over it and just wound up owning that game. So San Antonio will be moving a little bit further down the charts. But this Saturday, April 26th, they'll be playing the Vegas Nighthawks here in San Antonio at the Freeman Coliseum. So if you're in town and you're looking for some good, cheap entertainment, you want to watch some arena football, this is a great opportunity. Tickets are relatively inexpensive. And when I say relatively inexpensive, you can get good seats for like $10, right? It's very family friendly, very affordable. So come on out, support the Gunslingers. It starts at 6:05 Central Time. Do not bring a grill. Do not try and tailgate because we found out the hard way. You cannot tailgate at Freeman. Okay, this is not like regular football where you can set up a couple hours in advance and grill and do your whole thing, right? Um, Outside of that, let me look at the standings because I know San Antonio dropped down because of that
San
game.
Antonio is 1-3 right now. Now Vegas is 1-2, so Vegas isn't exactly tearing it up. So this might be a good opportunity for the Gunslingers to kind of get in the right column, get a win.
Well, and the funny thing is, in the Western Division, you've got three teams at 1-2 that are below the Gunslingers, and then obviously Northern Arizona is at 0-3. But there is a huge discrepancy between third place and second place.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Tim, I don't know anything about any teams giving away free hot dogs. Uh, I don't know, and I don't know where you're going with that comment, so I'm not going to touch it. We're going to go ahead and just move on. Um, we're going to move over to the National Arena League, where the Gunslingers came from 2 years ago, and Corpus was supposed to be, and decided not to for whatever. Um, we talked about it last week. Beaumont was going to have, a real test when they played their opponent, which is the Columbus Lions, who is arguably the strongest team that came from that AIF league with Corpus. Um, we found out that Beaumont is in fact for real. They pretty much dominated from the second quarter. Although, I mean, um, it was still close. I mean, it was a good back and forth match if you're looking at the stats and everything. Uh, but Beaumont was pretty much in control of that game for pretty much throughout the entire contest. Trying to look at the game sheet and see what the stats are. For it doesn't say who's where. Um, okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Beaumont's quarterback, 12 of 17, 126 yards, one pass, no interceptions, but he was sacked four times and he lost 23 yards as a result, right? You look at Columbus's quarterback, they actually used two quarterbacks. One quarterback went 12 of 25, 125 yards. And then their second quarterback came in one throw on one completion rather on three attempts. Oh, yeah. Um, and so it definitely looks like Beaumont is kind of real. Um, So they may be taking the NAL by storm, just like they did the AIF. And who knows? Maybe they don't stay there next year. Maybe they move up to the next level of competition. Because if they're going to blow through opponents and have this many eyes on them, may as well go where the big dogs are, which is still right now the IFL.
Yep. I mean, right now,
So,
yeah, right now Beaumont's, they're 3-0. They're leading their division in the
yep,
NAL. So
yep. But so yeah, some really good stuff coming out of Beaumont. And so it looks like their next opponent will be this Saturday as well. They'll be playing the Sioux City Bandits in Sioux City. NAL does have their own channel. You can pay for it if you want to watch it. If indoor football is your thing, like our friend Bobby Otten and our friends over at Pro Arena Talk, this is definitely their world. They love this stuff. And I can understand why. I mean, some of these games, you're talking, 60, 70 points on offense. Um, Although it does look like lately that's been more like 30 and 40. Um, but anyways, Beaumont will be playing Sioux City this weekend. If you want to watch it, there's another opportunity for some football for you. Now, let's flip over to the AF1, the league that we have no idea, uh, whether they're going to stick around or not. It looks like they're actually going to stick around, and it looks like the owner of the league is making, at least from the article that I read, anyways, he's making connections with other celebrities to kind of finance some more teams. So he's looking for some expansion to fill some of those voids that happened right before the season started, right?
yeah, and I mean
I
the
think,
owner is anybody, any NFL fan is Jeff Fisher, Mister what was he, Mister 8-8.
yeah, yes, sir. I remember that well. But because of his NFL notoriety, it is bringing some validity to that league. So hopefully they do get some more, solid financial backing and are able to kind of bring back some of that luster that they had when it was still, the Arena Football League or AFL. But anyways, our friends down in Corpus Christi, they had a heck of a game on their hands. They played the Southwest Kansas Storm, and this one looked like pretty much a dogfight up until the third quarter, where Corpus fell behind just a little bit. Um, but we're still in it. The entire game. Trying to bring up the rap sheet now. Their quarterback, 15 of 23. He did throw a pick, but 212 yards and two touchdown passes. And their lead rusher, where's their uh, running back? Uh, 11 rushes for 48 yards, two touchdowns. So not
Yeah,
bad, right? Uh,
Josiah King was their leading rusher.
yeah. Meanwhile, uh, the Storm had, it looks like they put a quarterback in at some point, but didn't use him as a quarterback. Maybe they used him as a decoy, because he has no stats as a quarterback at all. And he does have stats. Well, he doesn't have stats rushing either.
So I don't know what you're
No,
looking at. I'm looking at he was
he's a
uh,
receiver.
Jalen Morton was 23 of 42,
Mhm.
six touchdowns, two interceptions.
The guy above him, Jairus Grissom, or
See, I don't
it's got to
the
be
one
Jairus
the one I'm
Grissom.
looking at doesn't have him listed at all.
Okay. He's listed as a quarterback, but he was brought in for one play, and it apparently was a pretty big play because one reception, 11 yards, and a touchdown. So it had to have been a trick play. Uh, so that's pretty nice to see. But yes, unfortunately, Corpus did fall to the Kansas Storm, um, which is not bad, right? Because Corpus is still sitting at 3-1. They are two games behind Albany, which is kind of leading the pack there. Um, and they're still ahead of the Southwest Kansas Storm, but only because Southwest Kansas Storm has played 6 games.
Yeah.
Corpus has only played 4, right? So 3-1 is going to beat a 4-2. But things are going to start, kind of leveling out here a little bit. And this Friday, in fact, right, Corpus gets a chance to redeem themselves from that loss because they're actually going to be playing the Firebirds. Are they playing in?
They're playing in
Uh,
Corpus.
they're playing in Corpus.
Yep.
So this is also going to be kind of important for us to keep an eye on because the quarterback of the Albany Firebirds, Mr. Sam Castronova, was our quarterback for the Gunslingers last year, and who was also the MVP of the league last year, and decided to take his talents to the AF1, like maybe for more money or just more playing time, or who knows. But for whatever reason, he decided to leave the Gunslingers and go to Albany. So now it's Corpus's turn to deal with them and see what they can do against them. But this is going to be a huge game for them. So if you're in the Corpus area, make sure that your turn, you go down to the what the heck is their arena called? I cannot remember. Um, it's some kind of bank center. Jackie would definitely know. But anyways, if you're in the Corpus area, go check this out. I'm telling you, this game is going to be a fun game to watch. It's going to be very big, explosive offenses, and I'm expecting to see a lot of points and a lot of yards from this game. So that's pretty much your alternative football for this weekend. Again, a whole lot going on, a whole lot of craziness. Uh, if you've got one of the subscriptions, tune in and watch it. If you don't, we'll try and bring you the updates next Tuesday and let you know how things went. Um, Latest announcement from the IFA, it's still the IFA. I mean, that I know, there's a bunch of stuff that was going on with teams leaving and getting frustrated with the organization and taking shots at them, and the organization trying to take the high road, but still taking shots at some of the teams that have left. I believe the teams that are left are all the uh, the U.S. teams. I don't know if the Chihuahua team is still in uh, in America, or I mean, in the league or not. And yes, Mr. David, we actually did see that. We talked about it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Right. Um, they're supposed to be starting soon, right? Like in what is it?
Um,
April?
June, July, I think is when they said they were going to start.
Yeah, I thought it was like middle of June or something like that. And all the games are supposed to be night games to kind of combat the heat. Not really going to help you here in South Texas when it's still 97 degrees at 9 o'clock. But hey, man, we'll see how it goes. But again, nothing lately has come out on the IFA, so we're trying to keep an eye on them. We don't really have any sources for information there other than a couple of people that we know, and they're the ones that are somewhat connected with the league. But if the league doesn't tell them anything, then we don't hear anything, and we've got nothing really to share here. So we're doing the best we can to keep our eyes on this league, but everything seems to be kind of hush hush, until kind of the dust settles from all the mass exodus that happened. So
Yeah.
until we know more, that's kind of where things stand. So that being the case, um, what are we expecting to see from? Well, I think we should probably talk about the upcoming NFL draft happening in Green Bay, and I believe that's happening starting this weekend,
Thursday. So yeah,
Thursday,
Thursday is
right?
the first round of the draft. Um, I'm looking forward to it, of course. Looking at mock drafts, I think it's kind of everybody knows Cam Ward's going to get taken first. Which actually, Cam Ward he was in Houston for the Roughnecks Birmingham game this past weekend. They showed him on the TV. That's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, everybody's expecting Tennessee to take him. Obvious number one, great talent, best quarterback in the league. Um, sorry, best quarterback in the draft.
Yeah,
Travis Hunter looks like he's probably going to go number two. After that, it's everything's up in the air. I've seen Shador, getting picked high. This mock draft I'm looking at right now has New York taking a linebacker. You know, uh, and what one thing I don't like is I'm looking at this guy's number 5 pick, and they've got him taking Ashton Genty, which I'm hoping he falls down to where the Cowboys are because I want the Cowboys to take him.
Of course you
But
do.
as far as for our pick for this guy, he's got us taking McMillan, a wide receiver out of Arizona, which honestly I would be pissed if we took a wide receiver with our first round pick. Um, we have a lot of holes that we need to fill, and wide receiver isn't really one of them. Yeah, we need some help for CeeDee Lamb, but that's not first round help. So we need a running back. We need some offensive line. Uh, we need just about everything but a wide receiver for a first round pick. So
Yeah. And flip side for Green Bay, our biggest weakness is really kind of the edges with the cornerback and uh, a wide receiver, a deep wide receiver threat. Um, Kind of our key because there wasn't really a number one receiver in Green Bay, which was kind of part of the problem that I think Love had to deal with. He didn't have a number one to go to, so we didn't really have a lot of those deep threats. Um, but arguably one of our what could be considered our wide receiver one was Christian Watson, who did tear his ACL. He's still rehabbing from that, and he may or may not be back. He may not be back in time to make training camp or even the start of the season. So that being the case, we've got to get faster cornerbacks. We've got to get some deep threats at wide receiver, and we've got to get some really serious edge rushers. Um, that's a lot of needs for only a 7 round draft. Uh,
so this little mock draft that I'm looking at, it's got you picking up an edge rusher, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M.
so there goes a draft pick. What a waste. Um, yeah, I've been trying to look at some of the mock drafts and keep up with them and everything like that.
I mean, there's like
Um,
5 million of them out there, so I
ES,
just I I,
ESPN
I clicked
alone.
I clicked on the first one and was looking at it, but I mean, you can there's 1,000 of them.
Yep. I mean, and there really is. It seems like, everybody has a you know, a new draft every week. So this mock draft that I'm looking at, it's got, Dallas getting a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
And then of course Green Bay gets the Shamar Stewart, like you said. And that's just kind of like, that'd be nice. I don't think it's going to happen. I would really like to know the history of these mock drafts and see if anybody's actually even hit, you know, more than 50% on their mock drafts. The first like 4 or 5, I can maybe understand, right? But after that, who knows? Because there's always the options where I know like there's talk about somebody somebody was potentially interested in trading uh, and picking up Kirk Cousins' contract for a draft spot, right? Um, I mean, it's not a bad investment if you need somebody really bad and you need a backup quarterback because Kirk Cousins can still do that. It's going to be an expensive
Yeah.
backup quarterback, um, but it might be worth the gamble, right? So I love the mock drafts, but they really like I don't know that there's been anybody that's probably been more than 50% accurate on any one mock draft. So definitely have to look into that. Um,
So
okay.
I
Um,
just searched the thing for the most accurate mock drafts, and they had the from last year's draft. They're ranking everybody, and yeah, it looks like the guy who got the number one spot didn't even get 50% of his picks right. So
yep, most accurate mock drafters. I'm gonna look and see if I can find it also. Um, yeah, I'm not. who had the most here. Uh, yeah, this guy got 199 points on a possible 320. So that's maybe a little bit over half. So, anyways, um, yeah, you got to love the draft, right? I'm excited. I can't wait to see how much of a disaster zone Green Bay is during and after this, because again, we talked about it last week. Green Bay is not set up to handle 600,000 people. And that is a low estimate. We saw what happened last year in Detroit, where they had what almost 800,000 people show up. So, and this is going to be huge for the state of Green Bay and the city of,
Yep.
or I'm sorry, the state of Wisconsin and the city of Green Bay, and then a lot of the surrounding cities, right? Because they're going to need hotels to stay in. Um, but I really think it's going to be a little bit of a war zone for a while for the cleanup and everything afterwards. Uh, But anyways, so that being the case, we've got, a ton of stuff going on this weekend. And obviously we're pulling for the Brahmas. What do you expect to see from Houston? How are we going to counter that?
I think it depends on which quarterback they play. If they, yeah, I'm not sure what the status of Henderson is, um, but like I said, I think McClendon looked a lot better. Uh, but who knows? I mean, it is. We know how Houston's coach is. That's Houston's biggest or worst area is their coaching. I just don't think it's going to be a good game for them, honestly. Um, they're not a great team and they're poorly coached. So
Yeah.
I'm expecting a pretty big win by the
Yep.
Brahmas this weekend.
Um, I'm looking forward to seeing how our defense adapts to maybe not knowing what to expect from which quarterback is going to be coming out, what kind of,
Well, now there's tape on both of them, so it just
yeah,
depends who are you
yeah.
planning for. So
Mhm. And so I'd have to believe, based on, the injuries and stuff like that, they're probably practicing kind of base packages right now until we get a little bit closer to the end of the week and they actually announce, who's going on the inactive and whatever. And then they'll start throwing in the specialty packages for that quarterback, which I've got to believe, based on how that injury looked, um, I've got to believe they're going with QB2 this week. Just
yeah,
my personal thoughts. But that injury looked pretty nasty. And I don't remember if it was to his throwing arm or not. I know we talked about that last night. Um, but that injury did look pretty rough. So, anyways, that being the case, again, there's a ton of football going on this weekend. Make sure you're tuning in and watching. Uh, when you're hanging out, right? We've got a game this Friday, right? That you're going to want to tune in and root against Birmingham, even though it's going to be pretty fruitless. But uh, it's all about the league, right? We joke, we tease, we give everybody in Birmingham a hard time. We're going to be going there in a couple of weeks and giving them a hard time again. Um, but this league is based on, the viewership and the fans in the seats. Can't really do much about these other games, getting people in the seats. But what we can do is we can do our part and tune
yep.
in on these games, right? So make sure you're watching it. If you have like the ESPN app, try and watch it through the ESPN app. I myself have, just recently signed up for YouTube TV, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like those views are going to count.
No,
But
YouTube TV counts. The
okay, good.
ESPN apps views do not count.
Okay,
So
so the other way around than
yeah,
what I was thinking. So if you have YouTube TV, watch it on YouTube TV. If you don't, try and find someplace that does. Maybe go to your local sports bar and ask them to tune it in while you're there hanging out. Introduce some other people to the UFL, because generally speaking, when there's football on TV, people are going to look and be like, "Is that a replay? I don't recognize any of those teams." And
yep.
that's where you can step in and be like, "Well, no, actually, it's the UFL, spring football," and then dump all your knowledge on that, right? Uh, we've got another game on Saturday, and then we've got a doubleheader on Sunday. which is going to be kind of tough for us to watch. But I'm sure we're all going to have our phones out and watching it while we're tailgating and whatever, because we're definitely going to want to see what happens with DC and
Oh yeah.
Arlington, right? But yeah, if your team isn't playing, try and tune in and watch. If your team is playing, if it's local, get your butt down there and watch the game. If it's not, gather all your friends up, go someplace, tailgate, watch the game, have it on a bunch of TVs there, have it on your phone while you're all together, right? Because again, it's all about viewership. So the more eyes, the better. Um, but watch football this weekend. Okay.
And a lot of it.
Yep. Yep. So you got anything else to say, Brian? We're at the top of the hour. It's been a good hour. So I know my voice could use a break because I want to save it for Houston because we got to give them some love. But definitely again, shout out, keep Rig family in your prayers, and be ready for redemption game number 2 this weekend for the San Antonio Brahmas. And um, folks, hashtag work. Okay. Milton Hope will be announcing this first game. So there is no reason that you should miss this game, right? Be there, hear the best in the business as he brings out your San Antonio Brahmas for the season opener home game. And we get that nasty, nasty win against Houston. Brian, you got anything before we go?
Suck it, Houston.
Suck it, Houston. See you. Horns forward.